City of Stevens Point Public Works Committee meeting, recorded January 13, 2020.
I'll call the Public Works meeting to order. Mayor Weeza is absent tonight, so I am the chair. First item, we do have, we took attendance. Somebody? Oh, there she is. Are you ready? Yeah. Oh, okay, all right. Okay, sorry. All right, first item on the agenda is the director's report, and I see that the TAP grant is highlighted in red and also called out on the agenda, so I guess I'll pass it over to the director.
All right. Yeah, just real quick on the TAP grant. I know there's been questions over the last few months as far as, kind of what's going on and stuff, so just an update there quickly. Is just we have all the staff and BPSSC comments to SCH. They're working on those at the moment. Would expect, don't have the firm date in hand, but expecting another version of those drawings by the end of the month, which should keep us generally on task to finish up here yet and bid this spring so we can get construction this fall. So things are moving along, and we'll see also too that they did deliver the proposal for the additional work requested by the DOT. We'll be acting on that later.
I guess, is there any questions for the director regarding the report? Anyone from the audience? All right, I guess I will entertain a motion. Motion by Morrow, is there a second? Seconded by Comptroller. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2 is to accept the ordinance amendments regarding parking. Basically, this is, I know a portion of this is due to the fact of the adjustment for parking lots, was it 7?
I think lot 1 is moving to 7.
I'm sorry, lot 1, there it is. Due to that improvement on Water
Yeah, due
Street
to that,
there.
the Berkshire development, the sale there displaced people we had permitted to park there long-term. So we have temporarily moved them to lot 7 across the street, and just looking to make so we made the adjustments here to the amendments, just looking for approval to keep them there. We'll sign it then, and then start actually selling additional permits there, just as we did have available in lot 1 before. And it seems, as always, whenever we start to delve into this thing, we always find some discrepancies or inconsistencies with it. So there's a few other changes there, amendments as well, just to clean things up.
Okay. Any questions from the board? How about the audience? All right, I guess what's your wishes?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Morrow, is there a second? Second by Alder Zarazua, right?
Yes.
Any other discussion?
No.
All those in favor of that motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Item number 3 is to accept the 2020 Portage County Municipal Solid Waste and Recycling Agreement, and it's laid out in our packet. I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to add?
I'll just briefly, did actually have Attorney Beveridge look at this. He had no comments for it. Really what this is just a cleanup of some of the terminology and wording. It doesn't actually change the terms and conditions of the contract at all. So it's just kind of a grammatical cleanup, makes it seem a little more formal and professional than what it was before. But just wanted to bring it here so everyone had a chance to see it, so we can approve it. And they'll be sending us a copy to sign once they hear back from us.
Okay, any questions?
Just a question. On page 17 at the top where it says it shall terminate December 31st, 2019. And then it says if we don't renew it by December 31st, 2018. Are those the dates that are supposed to be in there?
No, those dates, as I understand it, says this is actually kind of like the master that's going to all the municipalities within Portage County. So as you see, even on it, so those minor things that there might otherwise change, within here as far as what we actually will receive in the end. Like I said, it's whatever was otherwise previously signed. They decided to update it. Again, doesn't change the conditions, but yeah, those will be updated as well with the final version we get back.
Okay.
Good question. Any other questions, comments? From the board, from the audience? All right. What are your wishes?
And I have a motion to accept the 2020 Portage County Municipal Solid Waste and Recycling Agreement.
Second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Alder Zarzua. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4, to accept the memorandum of agreement from the Wisconsin DOT related to sidewalk maintenance within the I-39 US 10 eastbound interchange. Again, there's a memo in here kind of explaining what the DOT is doing on that, looks like they're doing that bridge deck and doing some rehabilitating.
Yes, they are. Yeah, I would like to comment on this. This was a request from the DOT to present this to it. They've been asking, we have been working with them over the past few months, kind of a slow process to deliver something here. They provided this between Thanksgiving and the Christmas timeframe. Is kind of the final version what it is. So far what they presented. I really wasn't comfortable going back to them anymore. Wanted to bring it forward here. Part they're looking for some response that goes beyond me. I didn't have a memo presented with this with a position today because part of it was I was trying to get in touch with and spend time with Highway Commissioner Check to discuss some of the things in here that I wasn't really sure of, and I finally was able to do that on Friday. After that meeting, if I were to take up sides in this, which maybe have gone from neutral to not supporting this as much, there's just several questions I have for the DOT that I think need to be determined. One of which is that it states within here that the county is not compensated or reimbursed for the services that they provide. According to Commissioner Check, he says it is actually part of their maintenance agreement to do so. So I'm a little confused as far as what they're asking for us to do, as well as just the simple fact that even from Commissioner Check's perspective, I didn't know if he had anything to do with how this was put together, and he says he has not, is that, the bridge is actually included within the town of Hull. So really there's two sides that others presented. There's one, we can be the good neighbor and take it upon ourselves to do this. And the other thing is we could otherwise go back to the DOT, ask for some clarification, and just identify that our time is valuable and we need to take care of a lot of infrastructure. And if there's a service that they would otherwise pay for, they are the adjoining property owner. This should be their responsibility, to do. And it would seem that there are other alternatives that they have versus just coming to us to do this. The other part, I guess, of that too is that if everyone might others recall, if you were part of any of the other meetings or had just seen maybe something in the newspaper, the proposal for this is actually to improve the pedestrian and bicycle facilities by creating a multi-use path, which is a very great idea. Something much needed. The issue really comes about is that they want to move that into the median between the lanes of traffic. So it's going to be in the center of the bridge, not on the side as it is now. The concern there is just that it's going to be very timely and expensive to maintain this depending upon the winters we have. And it would be difficult for me to accept that without thinking we can get compensated. The other thing I did confirm with Commissioner Check is just, kind of his thoughts on what he would want to see as far as snow removal from there, and if we can just temporarily push snow to the side and create a usable path, that may work for a little bit. But when we have to come in and close it, to remove the snow, which eventually will accumulate, he'd be looking for a full lane closure to others do that. That takes considerable energy and resources to do, and depending upon when these snow events happen and how big they might be, really, it could add up to us. And I'm not sure that I'm willing to, as much as I would like to take care of things, to do that without, the DOT explaining maybe a little bit more about why it is they feel that it's valuable that we do it, and especially even so far why they feel we should do it for without any reimbursement.
And I guess if I can just share my thoughts on it, one thought is that I think it does make sense for the same entity to maintain the entire corridor. So if the county is maintaining the roadway, I think it makes sense for them to also maintain the pedestrian facilities, just so that you do have that coordination and you don't have the, okay, we're gonna, pile the snow up here and then let the city take care of it. Now, you have to work out different things on the strategy. So that is one concern that I would have. I think it makes sense for the county to continue to maintain it. And also, just thinking about this, okay, so this is a corridor that the state pays the county to maintain, and it's not within the boundaries of the city of Stevens Point. How can we justify to city taxpayers that we're spending money to maintain a road when we're not, it's not even within our municipal boundaries, and it's something that another entity is paid to maintain? So certainly I would be opposed to this. I would also note that typically when you have state highways that go through your community, and we do, typically you get connecting highway aid for this. So I think, what I would say to the DOT is, if you really want us to do this, we expect that we would have an increase in our connecting highway aid to even consider doing this, because we're not just going to maintain your stuff for free. And then kind of to add insult to injury with our connecting highway aid, that is an aid program from the state that has been reduced over the years. It is not what it used to be. So I think to keep on asking us to do more with less is just very difficult, and I know that certainly Public Works and Parks are very busy right now maintaining the facilities that we do have, and maintaining some of those pedestrian facilities, and certainly we don't want to see any delays throughout the city because we're focused on something that really shouldn't be our responsibility.
So I guess I have a question regarding, you had brought up the connecting highway. So Highway 10 corridor within the city boundaries, that's not designated as a connecting highway. We're not getting any sort of reimbursement for the areas that are within our boundaries.
Well, so I believe it starts at Country Club Drive.
Yeah.
And then it goes to the west of the city. So basically, there's a portion of, and actually that would be, it's the former Highway 10 corridor, now it would be considered Highway 66. But basically that corridor through Clark and Maine through the city.
So, okay, so this portion is not designated as a connecting highway
This would not be part
within
of
the
our.
city limits?
No, it would
No.
not.
Okay.
This, and basically, right now, the jurisdiction that's responsible is the county, and the county is getting a payment to maintain that.
But apparently they're not doing their part on maintaining the pedestrian portion, according to this. Right?
I suspect you'd get a different answer depending upon who you ask.
And I guess I have to agree with the director and the comptroller, that if we're gonna be taking care of this, that we need some sort of compensation, and also having the county doing the roadway portion and then us doing the pedestrian portion, I think is gonna create some issues. We're gonna be pushing snow, they're gonna be pushing it on the sidewalk, we're gonna be pushing it back on the road, and back and forth, and it sounds like it could be potentially a mess. So I guess I have to agree with both the statements that have been made. Is there any other comments, questions? Alder Jennings?
It sounds like we could just say, go back and get more information. Is that correct, Director? And I also want to say one more thing. The median multi-use path, those work really well in lots of cities that have lots of snow. So I am concerned about derailing that design through this kind of discussion when it will work. So I guess it sounds like you need to perhaps just go back and get more information, but I don't want the median idea derailed as a result.
Yeah, and I can definitely go back, and see what I can otherwise work out with them. I know they'd otherwise been looking for something, so I wanted to bring it here just to at least get, the ideas. I said I was actually rather neutral until I talked to Commissioner Jack and found out a little bit more about it, because I was kind of maybe so blindly just following the DOT's lead. And I just do think it does probably need to get more, but I can definitely take that back and see with that and continue negotiating with them and have them prepare another one. Like I said, at this point in time, the only thing I can see is otherwise to accept it if we just wanted to play the good neighbor, but I'm just not sure that's in our best interest.
So I guess, I don't know if even a motion would be appropriate, or, I mean, we really, as far as any kind of
I
direction?
think the motion would just be to accept or deny it if we were just going to if we could do a motion. I believe we just basically table it until next month, until further information, until Director Badun gets the information that he needs.
Any comments? Any other comments? Any comments from the audience? So I guess, do you want to make that motion?
Make a motion to postpone to next month until Director Badun gets added and needed information to try to clarify certain points.
Okay, I'll second that. Any comments on the motion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5 is discussion regarding residential permits within the university metered parking area. Again, we have a memo in here explaining what this agenda item is. I don't know, Director, if you want to elaborate on anything? It's pretty...
Just briefly, I think it's pretty straightforward. This is something that had been brought to our attention sometime. I think it's actually been talked out within, even within this committee, as far as how some of the parking around the university works right now, and as far as some of the residents there that, are looking for a place to park, may not have room in their driveways. So this is just trying to take the technology that we do have with the T2 parking system. We spent a little bit of time trying to get a little more educated in it, and now we understand a bit more of it and are ready to try to roll something out that we feel is, what we've been trying to do with some of the reserve parking in the area. This will definitely be, easier for the residents to utilize, and we can definitely, now do this. There's the map on the back, kind of shows you the areas we're talking about. And then this will just allow those owner-occupied residences to, get their permit, which will then be part of the LPR, so there'll be, no tags, nothing like that. It'll just be picked up by the LPR as the CSOs are driving around. So it should make it very easy for the residents and even easier for us. So it's kind of, and this is something that, once we use, is kind of a test as well. If this otherwise works out, then this is going to open up doors for us to use the software that we have, for even more. But we needed to start somewhere and address one of the issues we knew we had.
All right, thanks. Any comments, questions from the board?
Question.
Go ahead.
So this allows one permit for one vehicle for the homeowner?
Correct.
And, it has to be that one vehicle?
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, I guess just to elaborate on that, so that a person could not take it and move it from one vehicle to another.
Correct, because it's going to be license plate based, it's going to be tied to that license plate.
Okay. Any other questions, comments from the audience? What are your wishes?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Zarazua. Any other comments, questions regarding the motion? All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6 is to accept a proposal from SEH for a lane reduction evaluation regarding the proposed TAP grant improvements on connecting highways. Director?
If you recall, several months back, we'd otherwise talked about this, after meeting with the DOT to go through some of the preliminary plans, they had identified at that point in time that to be doing work in lane reduction specifically within the connecting highways would require us to do an evaluation, something that seemed to be a bit of a known to those in the DOT, and a surprise that it wasn't inclusive of our existing scope. They had provided us a scope of services that they wanted to see. SEH has been working as they've been updating their plans to try to check things off that list as they go through. And what we really have here is kind of a pared down version of what it is. So they've actually taken care of a few things as they've done, other work under scope. And so this is really what remains within there. I think that originally looking at the overall scope of work, it was probably at least 2, if not 3 times more than this, from my opinion, in work. So $3,200 is what they came up with, which I think is I guess kudos to SCH for working through that. I know I was even a little nervous because they haven't delivered until I understood more so what they were trying to do. So This actually pares it down and minimizes our expense to it, because this part is not covered by the TAP grant. So this $3,200 is completely out of our pocket. So, which is also a nice benefit of that, since we're not doing any sort of sharing with the state on this. But this is part of a requirement that the DOT has otherwise told us before they will approve the TAP grant that needs to be completed.
Okay. Any comments, questions? Audience, anything? Look for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Comptroller. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7 is a presentation by AECom regarding the introduction of the Business 51 Planning Project. Looks like we have a few folks from AECom.
That we do.
Full house.
Great. My name is Amy Canfield, and I'm here on behalf of AECom tonight with Ryan Bars, and we're here to give a short kind of overview of what the Business 51 project is going to be. This is the first of several times we'll be coming to talk to the Board of Works, or Board of Public Works. So tonight is meant as just kind of a high-level overview. We just started the project a few weeks ago and kind of got things running off, but we wanted to take a moment to come and introduce ourselves and let you guys know what we have planned. So for this project, we have 2 phases, really. There's going to be a planning phase up front, where we're trying to figure out exactly what the typical section of the roadway should look like, gaining community input, working through different alternatives. I'm going to be leading that part of the project. In the business, I'm kind of what you'd call a plan-engineer. So I have that engineering background and an urban planning, kick to it too. So my career has been spent doing corridor studies on urban arterials like this in other communities and with stop projects. I work on transportation planning exclusively with a traffic and safety kick to it, and I also have a very strong passion for incorporating multimodal things into projects too. So although, like a lot of people, I drive my car to work 5 miles, I also own a long tail cargo bike, and I throw 2 kids on the back of it and bike around on the weekends and buy $100 worth of groceries and 2 side bags. So, I have that perspective too, to kind of bring to this project. I'm excited to look at this urban corridor and figure out a way to accommodate both parts of the transportation, infrastructure there too. And when we get to the design part, Ryan is going to take over the project in the design area. He is a geometric designer. He's here local in Stevens Point. He has tons of experience on the design side, and that's where we want him to be, and we want me to be on the planning side. So that's the way we have our team organized. So when you go through this, you'll probably see both of us attending all of these meetings, so that when it gets to that point, we have an easy transition between the 2 of us. Other firms that are on our team, we have Gremmer and Associates there. Gremmer is going to help with some of the 30% design plans, a lot on the utility coordination and utilities design side. Rettler will be doing landscape design, and Newmalin is doing some soil borings and testing services for us. And then Right Away Professionals is going to provide us some help on determining real estate prices, if we have to have acquisitions, and how to work through that, comparison process when we get to the alternatives. Okay, so a little bit of history too. Most of you guys have been around and working with the city for a long time too. We started a project on Business 51 back in 2012. So that was what, we'll call the old original kind of project. When we did that, it lasted about 2 years before the project was put on hold. And we got through the purpose and need for the project. So we'd identified safety problems, traffic operations issues. We had looked at pavement was a big one, aesthetics, and some bicycle and pedestrian accommodations that we wanted to improve. We also worked through developing several preliminary alternatives that we took to multiple public information meetings and gained input from the community on that. We ended the project and put it on hold before we picked any kind of preferred alternative. There was still several options on the table, and there was still a lot of input that needed to happen at that point in time. So from the time that was put on hold in 2014 until right now in 2020, there's been no movement on the consultant side. So we're here to pick that project back up. And I'm going to talk through on the next part here about some of our scope activities and where we're going to go from now with that. So some of the major tasks that we're starting with now. The first thing we're doing currently is working on developing our public involvement plan. And that plan is going to lay out all of the different opportunities for the public to get engaged, like when they are in the project, how that occurs. You know, is it a public involvement meeting? Is it a stakeholders group? Is it through an online survey? It'll have all the details in that plan. And we plan to come back next month to this Board of Public Works meeting and share the details of that plan in there too, so that you can see that and react to that as well. We're also working on collecting data right now to update the crash analysis. So safety, when we did the first round of the project several years ago, was a big factor in, you know, developing the purpose and need, like the why. The why are we even doing this? We had a lot of safety problems with the original corridor, and it'll be interesting now to have that kind of hindsight to see how is this, you know, 5-year crash analysis going to compare to the one we did before, and see if the trends have changed or what we're dealing with out there. We're also looking at traffic projections. We had built a traffic model for the entire corridor, and we're going to go through that model and compare it to some, you know, changes in how traffic has grown on different Stevens Point arterials to say, okay, you know, we had predicted that, you know, by 2035 we'd have this much traffic. Are we on line? Are we on track? You know, this is another, I think, advantage we have almost with the project being delayed a little bit here, is that we can now like compare some trends to our original forecast and see how things are tracking, you know, and it gives us either, you know, I don't know what the outcome of this is going to be, but it's either going to prove it or tell us, hey, you gotta go back and, you know, take another look at this. And then after we have our traffic and safety analysis done, you know, those things and our pavement condition reports are going to form the big basis of our purpose and need, you know, for like why we might need to go and do the project. And then we'll work on developing these alternatives. So when we left off the project the first time, we do have several alternatives that are, let's say, in the running, you know, right now. We'll pick those up, dust them off, and likely modify them a little bit based on input that we get from you folks, from the community, and even just taking a look at the way some of the standards have changed. So when we went through the project several years ago, there was different rules and regulations at the time. Like if you were doing a project with state and federal funding, there was complete streets ruling where you had to incorporate bicycle and pedestrian accommodations on street for, you know, all projects at that time. So if that's a way that the city still wants to move, that can continue to be an option. If the city would like to say, you know, we want to see bicycle and pedestrian accommodations on this parallel route and maybe not, you know, right on the street, that could now be an option. That wasn't an option 6 years ago. Other things too, there used to be a rule that you had to have a 12-foot lane down Business 51 because we were on the national highway system, and Federal Highway Administration had set that as one of what they call their controlling criteria. Well, that rule also went away in this interim time frame too. So there will be opportunities to take those alternatives that existed and then see if there are things in there that we want to tweak, you know, to maybe try and minimize the roadway width in the typical section, or just, you know, revisit it and say, that was a good decision, that was, you know, maybe not, maybe we can alter that. And we have some scope in our study too to potentially analyze some new alternatives as they come up, whether that's through, you know, conversations with our technical team or input from the public, you know, or whatnot. So we're going to work on developing those, and then we'll be evaluating all these alternatives also based on some criteria. You know, usually it's, you know, cost is in there, your traffic flow, how it improves safety, what kind of right-of-way impacts, you know, does it have. We make a big old long list of criteria and use that to try and hash out which alternative is going to best meet the needs of the study. Nothing will be perfect. You know, there's never going to be one that makes everybody happy, but hopefully we can find one that, you know, does its best job to meet as many needs as we can. And all of this will be summarized in an alternatives analysis report that we will prepare at the end. So our big deliverable for this project is going to be this report that talks about all the alternatives we considered, the evaluation of them, and then recommends a final alternative. And a key difference too between this study now and what we did 6 years ago is, since we're doing this 100% locally funded right now, we do not have to go through the environmental process and complete like a large a NEPA document, which is like an environmental assessment or an environmental impact statement, an EIS. Those are lengthy documents that you need to put together if you're receiving state or federal funding. We are going to follow the intent of those rules so that it's someday, when you're looking to fund these improvements for construction, if you want to get funding then to do an intersection improvement for safety or a different corridor, you may have to complete a document at that time for like that little piece, and you'll have all the pieces that you need to put into that document. But writing that is not part of the scope of work of what we're doing right now, since we don't know exactly how big you'll have to get, funding for. So at the end of the day, then when we select that preferred alternative, then we move to create 30% design plans, and we're doing those for the entire corridor. Okay. We understand that, like, when we go through this project, public involvement is going to be one of the biggest considerations that we have here too. So we have a significant amount of time and energy scoped to outreach with the public, and we have several different ways we're planning on doing that. So we have 3 public involvement meetings currently in the scope. They'll be spread out, a few months apart throughout the year here in 2020. We plan on creating a stakeholder group as well, and including key representatives, whether it's, folks from the neighborhood association, someone from Southside Business Association, somebody who represents emergency services, maybe local businesses, some key school groups, things like that. And that group we will meet with prior to these public meetings in a smaller group setting to bounce ideas off of, and see what they think, to kind of give us a sounding board. Are we on the right track? Get some input before we get to the public. We anticipate having an online survey too. This will be a way that we can reach people who maybe can't come to the public meetings in the evening, or aren't available to participate in the stakeholders group. And we also anticipate putting a lot of information up on the project website, so it's there, people can download it. And then also making sure that we utilize direct mail to contact those people who, like, at a minimum, live directly along the corridor. And the extent of that mailing, can be determined by working with Scott and other members of the city. So for the high-level project schedule, kind of on a seasonal kind of breakdown, this winter, so let's say the next 2 or 3 months, this is when we are doing that data collection and kind of validating and analyzing the purpose and need. So that's traffic and safety and pavement, aesthetics, like figuring out where the bicycle and pedestrian needs are. Alternatives development will be in the spring, so that's where we take the alternatives. We, look at how we might modify them potentially or create new alternatives. And then there's a public meeting that would be one this spring. This summer is when we evaluate these, compare them all to each other, go back to public meeting, show them that. And then in the fall is when we hope to identify a recommended alternative for the corridor. And at that point in time, after that alternative is identified, that's when the final documentation, would be all turned in that kind of concludes, let's say, that first planning phase of the study. And basically 2021, like right around Christmas Eve time, is our goal to hand it off then to Ryan and his group to do 30% design for the corridor and put those plans on paper. Okay, and finally, this is the last one here. I just wanted to highlight the different ways and opportunities for you guys to get involved too when we would be back. So today, again, really, kind of high-level overview of where we're going with the study. Next month will be details of the public involvement plan and exactly what that means in terms of timing and what kind of content we're anticipating at each meeting. We're also creating right now a little tri-fold briefing booklet about the study for you folks, for elected officials, for basically anybody interested in it, that you could hand out to a constituent to give them some more information on where to go to find information and how to get involved. So that will be available by next month too. And then the other times we anticipate coming back are after each one of the public meetings to share an update on what we heard, potentially any changes that we're now anticipating, and just kind of share that feedback and get thoughts from you too. So throughout this process, this is something personally, I love these transportation planning projects, especially these urban ones. I'm really excited to work on this. I want this to be really collaborative too. So if anybody, if you have concerns or there's certain things you want to see in the process, talk to Scott about it now, and let's, understand so that we can work through this and make sure that we come up with a great solution, for the whole city. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you. Any questions from the board? Go ahead, Alder Jennings.
I'm very excited to see this. Division Street is my passion. I'm just wondering, I see a difference in this approach and this team compared to last time, but I'm just wondering, in terms of the public involvement, is your approach informed by the mistakes that were made last time? I mean, have you sort of dug into that and thought about where it went wrong and why, and you're righting that ship?
Yeah, and I would say definitely. So, even on a personal perspective, public involvement is one of those things that I really, truly care a lot about. I feel sometimes we have projects that just go hand wave and they don't really try to involve the public. And in projects like this that are planning for, 3 miles of a core corridor right in the middle of the city, we need to do more than just hand waving here. And the original time when we did the study several years ago, there was public involvement meetings, but there wasn't a whole lot beyond that. And that's why I feel passionate about getting the stakeholders group built, of having people that we can meet with in a smaller, format and be very transparent with, and get feedback from them. A lot of times when we go to a public meeting, we'll be presenting like the final results of a traffic and safety analysis, and then, it's already been signed off on. But when we go to the stakeholders group, I want to share things like, so this is what we're starting to see right now. This is the direction things are going. Like, how do you guys feel about this? Or what could we do differently? Do you have suggestions for ways to message it, too, that might sit better. So I think a lot of that, and even having, that we didn't have an online survey the first time around, so we didn't get to hear from, the greater majority, except at the particular meetings. I think that can happen. And then I'm also optimistic, too, that the time that has passed, again, has allowed us to learn and frankly allowed some of the laws to change that are much more in the favor of doing city planning. The first time around, we were doing a lot of say like larger scale, almost like DOT type planning on a city corridor. And it made it very difficult too, to go to some of these public meetings and show typical sections that were very impactful through the middle of the city, because the real reason was, well, we have to do that. It wasn't because you all wanted it or people in the public wanted it or even, the consulting team wanted it. It was well, it says on that piece of paper that you have to put a 12-foot lane there, and that's a hard sell. So with this one, with local funding and with the fact that a lot of these regulations, either don't exist or have been, tamed down a lot in the past 6 years, now we can go and present alternatives that we're actually hearing that the city wants, that the people want, and incorporating that too.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? I was involved in the 2012, 2014, it was very interesting. And from what you're presenting tonight, I'm feeling confident that this one's going to go much better. One question I had, so does that corridor, it does not have that federal designation anymore, or they just lightened up the requirements of that?
It's still on the national highway system. They've just lightened the requirements to make municipalities more agile, in how they plan.
Because I know, that was a very, basically, it was presented that, well, this is how it has to be because we have to. So that's definitely a positive. So I guess no other questions from the committee or from the audience? All right, well, thank you for your presentation, and we look forward to the upcoming months. I guess that exhausts our agenda, so item number 8 is adjournment, and we're done.
Videos of these meetings are available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.